June 11th, 1941. The main drafting floor. Montreal Locomotive Works. The air is thick with the smell of graphite, machine oil, and stale pipe smoke. Elias Boyer, chief of the tank arsenal, stares at the blueprint pinned to his board. It is a technical marvel, a masterpiece of American mass production. It is the new M3 medium tank. And Elias Boyer hates it. He hates the absurd, sponson-mounted 75mm gun, a gun that can only point 15 degrees to the left or right. He hates the tall, riveted plate construction that he knows, instinctively, will be a shot trap, guiding enemy shells into his crew. He hates the three-tiered, seven-man crew, a committee for a tank. It's not a tank, he mutters, rubbing his eyes. It's a street-fighting bastard. It's a pillbox on tracks. But he has his orders, and in the office next door, a man from the Ministry of Munitions and Supply is waiting. The year is 1941. The British Army, shattered and disarmed, is still reeling from the beaches of Dunkirk. Its tank fleet is gone, left blazing on the roads to the coast. Britain is screaming for armor, for anything that can stop a panzer. And Canada, with no history of tank design, no infrastructure, no experience whatsoever, has vowed to help. The Americans, not yet in the war, have offered their M3 chassis. It is the only modern, reliable, mass-producible platform in North America. Elias Boyer and his team of locomotive engineers have been given a simple, impossible task. Take this flawed American design and turn it into a real cruiser tank. A tank that can fight in the 360-degree battles of the future. The factory floor below him is a cathedral of industry. A deafening, white-hot inferno of creation. Men who, just 6 months ago, were building boilers for steam engines are now pouring molten steel into massive, complex casts. This is the first crucial Canadian innovation, a one-piece, cast upper hull. It is smoother, better sloped, and far more resilient than the M3's riveted boilerplate. Get rid of the sponson. Boyer orders his team, slashing a red grease pencil line through the M3's blueprint, and give me a real turret. A turret that turns. This is the birth of the tank cruiser, Ram Menke. It is a hybrid, a mongrel. It has the powerful, reliable Wright Continental R975 radial engine of the M3. It has the M3's tough, proven suspension, but on top, it has a sleek, cast steel hull and a proper, traversable turret. It is a Canadian head on an American body. By August 1941, the first Ram McY rolls off the assembly line at Montreal. It is a moment of intense national pride. Cannons, built in Hamilton, engines from the U.S., armor plate from Sorel. It is a continental achievement, the crew of the first tank. Young volunteers from the Governor General's Horse Guards grin as they pose for the cameras. There is only one problem. The turret, the one Boyer fought for, houses a 2-pounder anti-tank gun, and at the exact same moment, 4,000 miles away in the Libyan desert. Reports are flooding back to British High Command. The 2-pounder is a pea shooter. Its solid-shot needles are pinging harmlessly off the new, thicker-skinned German Panzer IIIs and IVs. The Ram McY, Canada's great hope, is obsolete before its tracks are even dirty. The news hits Ottawa and Montreal like a physical blow. We need a bigger gun. The order is frantic. Boyer and his team are already one step ahead. They knew the 2-pounder was a stopgap. They had been working in secret on a new turret, a larger ring, to mount the new, high-velocity 6-pounder gun. The factory retools. The MKI design is scrapped. The tank cruiser, Ram Mech 2, is born. This is the one. It is, for a brief, shining moment in early 1942, one of the best tanks in the world. It's faster than the British Valentine. It's more reliable than the British Crusader. Its 6-pounder gun can punch a hole in any German tank currently on the field. It has a machine gun turret on the bow, a gyro stabilizer for its main gun, and it's built with North American precision. The factory in Montreal is now a roaring giant, a well-oiled machine. By the summer of 1942, they are churning out hundreds. July 10th, 1942, Camp Borden, Ontario. Trooper Jack Riley, a 19-year-old farm boy from Manitoba, stands in awe of the machine. He is a crewman in the 4th Canadian Armored Division. He has spent 6 months training on the Ram 2. He loves its smell, a sharp mix of hot oil, cordite, and new paint. He loves the deafening roar of the 9-cylinder radial engine as it catches, a sound that shakes the ground. Inside, it is a cramped, hot, steel box. Driver, advance. The commander's voice crackles in his headphones. Riley, in the gunner's seat, peers through the 6-pounder's narrow periscope. The tank lurches forward, its tracks churning the Ontario dust. Gunner, traverse right. Target, hull down T-shape, 800 yards. Riley's hands are slick with sweat as he grips the traverse wheel. He brings the crosshairs to bear. On target. Fire. He slams the firing pedal. The 6-pounder cracks, a sharp, violent explosion that fills the turret with acrid smoke. The whole 30-ton tank rocks back on its suspension. Hit! The radio operator yells, watching the practice target collapse. The crew cheers. They feel invincible. They feel ready. They are convinced that this tank, the Ram, will carry them to Berlin, but a shadow is growing. A shadow that stretches all the way from Detroit, Michigan. While Canada was perfecting its Ram, the Americans were not standing still. They had learned the same lessons from the M3. Their answer was not to modify. Their answer was to build new. The result was the M4, the Sherman, and the Sherman had something that would change the war. It had a 75mm main gun, mounted in a fully rotating turret. At first, the Canadians scoffed. The 6-pounder could punch a harder hole. It had better anti-tank velocity. But the war in the desert had taught another lesson, one the Canadians had not yet learned. Tanks do not just fight tanks. They fight everything. They fight anti-tank gun crews, machine gun nests, dug-in infantry, and artillery positions. The Ram's 6-pounder fired a small, solid-shot projectile. Fantastic for killing a panzer, but almost useless for blowing up a concrete bunker or a machine gun nest. It had no effective high-explosive Chi round. The Sherman's 75mm gun, while a lesser tank killer, was a master of all trades. It could fire a decent armor-piercing round, and it could fire a massive, devastating high-explosive shell. It was the perfect infantry support weapon. And the Allies, now planning the invasion of Europe, realized that the war to come would be a war of infantry support. A final, fatal decision is made. To simplify supply lines, to standardize ammunition, to streamline training, the Allied armies will all be equipped with one tank, the M4 Sherman. The order comes down in late 1942. The Montreal Locomotive Works will stop production of the Ram. They will retool their entire magnificent factory to build the American M4 Sherman. It is a national humiliation. Trooper Jack Riley and the entire Canadian Armored Corps are told to hand over their beloved Rams. Their new tanks, the ones they will take to Italy and Normandy, will be Shermans. And just like that, the Ram is a failure. Nearly 2,000 of them, brand new, powerful, and reliable, are declared obsolete before they have ever fired a shot in anger. They are parked row on row in vast, silent fields in Canada and England. The most ambitious industrial project in Canadian history has become a 30-ton monument to a dead-end idea. The dream is over. March 6th, 1943. 9:15 hours. The Medinine Mareth Road. Tunisia. Major Alistair Crerar of the 1st Field Regiment. Royal Canadian Horse Artillery. Ducks instinctively as a German 80mm shell screams overhead and explodes in a cloud of sand and black smoke. 300 yards short. His knuckles are white on the door of his bouncing Morris quad artillery tractor. "Driver, faster! Get us to that ridge!" He bellows over the din. Behind his quad, the queen of the battlefield is behaving like a stubborn, heavy anchor. It is the Ordnance QF 25-pounder field gun, and it is, without question, the finest, most versatile, most beloved artillery piece of the Second World War. Its 80mm shell can fire fast and flat as an anti-tank gun, or high and arcing as a howitzer. Its rate of fire is astonishing. It is accurate, reliable, and it is the steel backbone of the entire British and Canadian Army. And it is towed. Crerar's quad, a 4-wheel drive beast of a truck, is straining to pull the 1.8-ton gun and its limber, the ammunition trailer, through the soft sand. Up ahead, a mile or more, he can see the dust plumes of the Sherman tanks of the Calgary Regiment. They are advancing, fast, exploiting a gap in Rommel's line. This is the new blitzkrieg warfare the Allies have learned. Fast-moving, hard-hitting, combined arms, and Crerar's guns. The guns the tanks need to smash the dug-in German 88s are stuck. We're bogged, sir," the driver yells, the quad's wheels spinning uselessly. Crerar smashes his fist against the steel door. "Damn it, get the mats!" His men, his gunners, are piling out of the truck, scrambling to unhitch the gun under a hail of long-range machine gun fire. They are not artillerymen in this moment. They are targets. They are glorified draft horses, manhandling a 2-ton piece of steel while the war races away from them. Every 88mm anti-tank gun the Germans have is zeroed in on this exact moment. The unlimber. The most vulnerable 5 minutes in an artilleryman's life. Alistair Crerar watches the Shermans disappear over the ridge, their radios no doubt screaming for the fire support he cannot give. This is the crisis of 1943. The tanks have become too fast for their own protectors. The British and Canadians are not the only ones with this problem. The Americans, with their typical industrial fury, have already solved it. Their solution is the M7 self-propelled gun, nicknamed the Priest by the British. It's an M3 Sherman chassis, the same family as the Ram, with its top chopped off. In the open pulpit, they have mounted their standard 105mm howitzer. It is brilliant. It is a masterpiece. It can keep up with the tanks. It can fire, move, and fire again in seconds. It is saving lives. And the British and Canadians despise it. The problem is not the tank. The problem is the gun. The 105mm howitzer is an American gun, firing American ammunition. The entire British and Commonwealth supply chain, from the factories in England and Canada to the front lines in Tunisia, is built around one artillery round, the 25-pounder. If they adopt the Priest, they have to create an entire separate parallel supply chain just for their artillery. They will need different trucks, different depots, different supply manifests. All for one American gun? All while their own 25-pounder shells pile up. Useless. It is a logistical nightmare. It is a non-starter. The British sent a frantic, desperate request to their own Ministry of Supply. We need a priest, but we need it to fire our gun. We need a 25-pounder on tracks. The request lands on the desk of the Department of Munitions and Supply in Ottawa. And suddenly, a light goes on. Elias Boyer, the same engineer who oversaw the ram's creation at Montreal Locomotive Works, is called into a meeting. Mr. Boyer, a government official says, sliding a blueprint across the table. You are familiar with the M7 Priest? I am, Boyer says, his face grim. He sees it as another American success, built on the chassis his team was forced to abandon. And you are familiar, the official continues, with the 2,000 assets we currently have sitting in storage. He doesn't have to say the name. The ram, the failure, the 2,000 brand new, powerful, reliable tank chassis that are doing nothing but gathering rust and humiliating the Canadian government. The British need this, the official says, pointing to the priest. But they need it with this, he adds, pointing to a schematic of the 25-pounder gun. Your job, Mr. Boyer, is to put the gun into the tank. Can you do it? Boyer looks at the two blueprints. The 25-pounder is a towed gun. It's designed to be pulled, to fire from a stable, grounded spade. It is not designed to be bolted into the chassis of a 30-ton tank. The recoil forces are completely different. The entire geometry is wrong. He looks at the ram. The driver is on the right-hand side. The engine is in the back. The turret ring is in the middle. He looks at the 25-pounder. Its controls and sights are on the right side, designed for a man standing on the ground. If they put the gun in, the driver's station will be in the way. We'll have to move the driver, a junior engineer suggests. Move him where? Boyer snaps. To the other side, sir. To the left? No. Boyer says, his mind racing. The M3, the American M3, the driver, the transmission. It's all on the right. We built the ram to be the same. The British, they drive on the left. But they're tanks. They're cruiser tanks. The driver is on the right. To move the entire drivetrain, it would take a year. We'd have to redesign the whole tank. Then what, sir? Boyer stares at the chassis drawing. The only place the driver can go, the only place there is room for him, is on the far right of the hull, out on a sponson, almost outside the main chassis. And the gun, if they put it in, the gunner will have to be on the left. But all the gun's controls are on the right. It's a nightmare, the junior engineer says. It's a Frankenstein. It can't be done. Elias Boyer is silent. He looks at the 2,000 failures parked in a field. He thinks of the artillerymen like Alistair Crerar, being slaughtered in the sand because their guns are too slow. No, Boyer says, picking up his pencil. It's not a nightmare. It's a challenge. We will make it fit. He begins to draw. He sketches a new, open-topped superstructure. He moves the driver's station to a crude, bolted-on-looking box on the far right fender. He mounts the 25-pounder, backwards, to a massive, custom-built cradle in the center. It is ugly. It is awkward. It is asymmetrical. It is an accidental layout, born of total desperation. It is the 25-pounder self-propelled gun on RAM chassis. It is the birth of the Sexton. July 19th, 1943. 11:30 hours. The Sicilian Highlands, overlooking the regal Buto Valley. The heat is a physical weight. It is 105 degrees in the shade. And there is no shade. The air is a shimmering, dusty haze, thick with the smell of cordite, diesel, and sun-baked rock. Major Alistair Crerar, RCHA, is no longer in a Morris quad. He is standing in the open hatch of a Sherman observation post tank, parked hull down on a ridge. His uniform is black with sweat. His binoculars are pressed so hard against his face they feel like part of his skull. 1,000 yards ahead of him, the men of the Hastings and Prince Edward Regiment are pinned. They are ghosts in the yellow-brown scrub, shadows that cannot move, their advance shattered. The sound is what defines the battle. It is the terrifying, cloth-ripping brrrrack of a multiple German MG-42 machine guns, firing from stone sangars built into the opposite ridge, and punctuating it is the hollow thump, thump, thump of 81mm German mortars. The hasty peas are being systematically butchered. "Sunray!" A frantic voice crackles over the radio. It's the infantry company commander. "Sunray, this is 3 Alpha. We are taking devastating fire. We cannot advance. We need smoke. We need We need God. We need something." Crerar watches a Sherman from the Three Rivers Regiment try to crest the ridge to help. It lurches forward and is instantly hit. Kraboom! A single 80-diameter anti-tank round, fired from a perfectly concealed gun 2 miles away, punches through the Sherman's frontal plate. The tank explodes, its turret spinning 20 feet into the air. Crerar flinches. Damn them. Damn their eyes. He keys his own transmitter. His voice is ice cold. "All stations, this is 0 Alpha. Target, confirmed machine gun nest, map grid 459er 672, bearing 180, range 4,000 yards, 1 round, smoke, fire for effect." He is not talking to men struggling with tow hooks and tractors. 2 miles behind his ridge, Sergeant Mike Dusty Miller, a former foreman from a Hamilton steel mill, is sitting in the pulpit of his Sexton SPG. His crew calls the tank the Parsons Pulpit. It is hot, cramped, and smells like an unvented engine room. "New target," the radio operator yells over the engine's idle. "Dusty Miller." As the gun sergeant is in the awkward, accidental gunner's seat. He grabs the traverse wheel, craning his neck to read the dials. "Bearing 180. 4,000, the range setter calls out. The loader, a 19-year-old from Rimouski, Quebec, has already slammed a 25-pound smoke shell into the breech. He taps the breech block. "Ready." "Fire," Miller yells. The Sexton rocks back on its haunches with a violent crack. The 25-pounder barks. The brass shell casing ejects with a hiss, clattering on the steel floor. In his OP tank, Alistair Crerar sees the puff of white smoke bloom. Perfectly, 100 yards to the left of the German machine gun nest. He keys his mic. "Drop 100. Fire for effect. Battery. 3 rounds. Fire." This is the moment, back in the gully. Sergeant Miller's radio operator screams the order. "Fire for effect. 3 rounds. On," Miller yells. "Ready," the loader shouts, slamming in a high explosive shell. "Fire. Crack." The loader is already moving. Before the gun has finished recoiling, he has the next shell. "Ready." Fire! Crack! Ready! Fire! Crack! Across the gully, 5 other Sextons are doing the exact same thing. In less than 30 seconds, 24 high-explosive 25-pounder shells are screaming toward a single 100-yard patch of hillside. Crerar doesn't even have to put his binoculars down. The target area simply vanishes. It does not explode. It dissolves. It is a rolling, deafening roar of steel, rock dust, and fire. The Burak of the MG-42s is not just silenced. It is erased. Good God. The infantry commander's voice whispers over the radio. 0 Alpha. Good shooting. Good God. We're moving. We're up. The hasty Ps are on their feet, charging forward. All stations. Crerar commands, his voice rising. New target. Suspected 88, grid 471, 699er. Range 5,500. Fire for effect. The guns roar again. The ground shakes. This is a revelation. But the Germans are not stupid. Their own artillery spotters have seen the muzzle flashes. They have triangulated the position of Crerar's battery. Incoming! Crerar's own spotter screams. Crerar hears it. The high, terrifying whistle of heavy mortars. The sound of tearing silk. Nabalwerfers. Battery, battery, move, move now. New position, map grid. This is the moment that defined the old war. The moment of panic. The moment of unhitching, of hooking up the quads, of drivers fumbling with trailers while shells rain down on them. The moment of death. Sergeant Dusty Miller hears the shoot and scoot order. He doesn't scramble for a tow hook. He doesn't even stand up. He just yells at his driver, a kid from Alberta. Driver, hard right. Get us to that next wadi. 500 yards. Go, go. Go! The 400-horsepower right radial engine roars. The 26-ton Sexton spins on its own tracks, throwing up a colossal cloud of dust, and races across the open ground. Just as Miller's tank clears its firing pit, a salvo of 150 mm or German mortar rounds lands exactly where he was, obliterating the empty brass casings he left behind. His entire 6-gun battery is already gone. Churning dust, looking like a cavalry charge, they slam to a halt in the new gully. The gunners are already relaying their guns using the new coordinates, less than 2 minutes after the Germans fired. Sergeant Miller is slamming his hand on the breech. Fire! The battery is back in action. Alistair Crerar, safe in his OP tank, is almost laughing. He's witnessing a revolution. This failed ram chassis, this Frankenstein gun mount, this accidental design. It is a work of art. It's better than the American Priest. The 25-pounder has a faster rate of fire, a higher muzzle velocity, and a longer range than the American 105 mm. It is more accurate. And the ram chassis, the obsolete Canadian tank, it is a beast. It is reliable. The Wright Continental engine, the same one from the Sherman, just runs. It doesn't break down in the Sicilian dust and heat. The queen of the battlefield is finally free. She is no longer in chains. She is a dancer. And this ugly, awkward, Canadian-built mongrel is the perfect partner. The secret weapon is born. June 11th, 1944. 17 hours. A muddy apple orchard. 4 miles south of Caen, Normandy. The air is a humid, green hell. It is thick with the smell of death, rotting apples, and diesel. For 5 days since D-Day, the 3rd Canadian Infantry Division has been locked in a slogging match of almost unimaginable ferocity. This is not the fast-moving desert war. This is a meat grinder, Sergeant Dusty Miller. Now a grizzled veteran with the 13th Field Regiment, Royal Canadian Artillery, is trying to eat a piece of hardtack. His Sexton, the Parsons pulpit too, is dug into a deep, muddy pit, its hull covered in camouflage netting and fresh-cut branches. The entire 24-gun regiment is dug in around him, a vast, hidden city of steel. A young private, a reinforcement who just arrived yesterday, is shaking. His hands tremble so violently he can't light his cigarette. It's the Moaners, the private whispers, his eyes wide. Dusty Miller nods grimly, not looking up from his hardtack. Nebelwerfers, the moaning minis. You'll get used to it. But, sir, they're so close. And the Panzers. The 12th SS. They're just over that ridge. What if they... Miller stops chewing. He looks at the kid. What if they what, son? Counterattack? Is that what you're worried about? Yes, sir. Miller gestures with his biscuit. Let 'em come. The kid looks confused. But we're artillery. We've got no armor up top. We're not tanks. You're right, Miller says, his voice flat. We're not tanks. We're the men who kill tanks. We're the men who kill everything. The kid doesn't understand. He is still thinking like a towed gun artilleryman. He's thinking of unhitching, of being overrun. Dusty Miller is thinking about the Mike target. This is the new tactic. The doctrine perfected in Italy and unleashed on Normandy. It is the reason the Sexton is the most feared weapon on the battlefield. Back in England, the British Army had seen the Sexton's performance in Sicily and Italy. They were horrified, not by its failure, by its success. The Canadians, with their 2,000 failed ram chassis, had accidentally created the perfect self-propelled gun. It was so reliable, so effective, so mechanically superior to any British design, that the British War Office placed an immediate, desperate, top priority order. We don't care what it looks like. We don't care that it's a hybrid. Build them. Build all of them. The Montreal Locomotive Works, which had been forced to stop building rams, was now ordered to start building them again, or at least their chassis. The Sexton assembly line roared to life. 24 hours a day, by D-Day. The Sexton was not just a Canadian weapon. It was the standard self-propelled 25-pounder for the entire British Army. The entire Second Army, the British Liberation Force, was built on a backbone of failed Canadian tanks. And now, in this muddy field, the 12th SS Hitlerjugend Division is about to find out what that means. The radio in Miller's Sexton crackles to life. It is not a panicked voice. It is the cold, steady voice of a forward observation officer, FU, in a church tower. All stations. This is 09. I have movement. Confirmed enemy counterattack. Infantry and armor. 3 Panzerwaffen, and at least a battalion of Panzer Grenadiers. Moving west. Along the road. Rid 891, 223. Prepare for... Mike target. Dusty Miller crushes his cigarette. Here we go, kid, he says. Put your fingers in your ears. Mike target means regiment. It means all 24 guns of the 13th Field Regiment. Target, Mike. The radio operator screams. Grid 891, 223. Bearing, 290. Range, 3,500. The gunners are moving with a terrifying, drilled precision. They are not rushing. They are professionals. Charge 3. Set. Ready. The loader slams the breech. Fire, Miller yells. His Sexton barks. But it is not a single bark. It is one part of a single, colossal, earth-shattering roar. Row! Arr! 24 guns, firing as one. And they do not stop. The order is gunfire, 10 rounds. This is the Sexton's true power. The open-top design, the wide-open floor of the ram chassis. It is an ammunition factory. Shells and charges are stacked everywhere, passed up by the driver, by the radio operator. The loader doesn't have to fumble. He just moves. Crack! He spins, grabs a shell. Crack! He slams it home. Crack! He ejects the casing. Crack! The Sextons are firing at a rate of 10 rounds per minute. The kid is sobbing, holding his ears as the steel box rocks, screams, and fills with smoke. The noise is not a sound. It is a physical, punching force. The smell of cordite is so thick it burns the lungs. 2 miles away, on the road to Caen, the Hitlerjugend counterattack is not stopped. It is annihilated. It is deleted from the face of the earth. In the span of 60 seconds, 42 high-explosive 25-pounder shells have fallen on a single 200-yard stretch of road. It is a stonk, a wall of steel. The German Panzer Grenadiers, the most feared infantry in the world, are vaporized. The Panzer Rs are tossed from the road like toys. Their tracks blown off. Their crews concussed. Their armor, thick enough to stop a Sherman, shattered by the sheer, percussive force of 240 artillery shells. The FU's voice comes back on the radio. He is audibly shaken. 09. Target. Target destroyed. Good Lord. Cease firing. Cease firing. Dusty Miller leans back, his ears ringing. He pulls a fresh cigarette from his helmet. He looks at the kid, who is pale and shaking. See, son? Miller says, his voice hoarse. Let him come. This is the story of Normandy. This is the story of the breakout, of the Falaise Gap, of the race across France. The Sextons are always there. They are the secret backbone. While the Shermans and the Churchills get the glory, it is the Sextons, the reliable, indefatigable, failed tanks from Montreal, that are doing the killing. They are the great equalizer, the one weapon the Germans truly fear, because they can fire, move, and fire again before the moaning minis can even find their range. The Sexton has become the most dependable, most effective, and most lethal artillery piece of the entire European campaign. March 23, 1945. 17 hours. The west bank of the Rhine River, near Xanten, Germany. Sergeant Dusty Miller, RK, is deaf in his left ear. He is 28 years old but looks 45. His face is a leathery mask, etched with 2 years of non-stop combat. From the dust of Sicily to the mud of Normandy, the flooded fields of the Scheldt, and now to the very border of the German heartland. His Sexton. Pulpit 3 is parked wheel to wheel with hundreds of other guns. As far as he can see, in every field, behind every ruined house, along every road, is artillery, 25-pounders, 5.5-inch mediums, 7.2-inch heavies, and Sextons. Hundreds and hundreds of Sextons. The mobile, rapid-fire backbone of this entire steel wall. This is Operation Plunder, the final assault across the Rhine, the end of the war, and it is about to begin with the single most terrifying artillery barrage of the European campaign. Synchronize watches, now. The radio commands. Dusty Miller looks at his 1659. The young replacement loader, the kid from Normandy, is gone. In his place is another kid. This one from Calgary, who is just as pale. "Sir, my God," the kid whispers, looking at the endless line of guns. "Is this all of it?" "Not even close," Miller says, checking his gun laying. "The orders have already been given. It is not a Mike target. It is not a stonk. It is a pepper pot. It means every gun, every heavy mortar, every tank will fire every shell they have at a sustained rate for 1 solid hour at the German positions on the far bank. It is not an attack. It is an extermination." "Fire," the radio says. At 17 now, on the dot, 3,500 Allied guns open fire. The world ceases to exist. It is not a sound. It is a physical thing, a solid wall of pressure that rips the air apart. The ground does not shake. It bounces. The Sextons, dug in, rock back on their suspensions. Crack, crack, crack. The gun crews moving in a blur of practiced, desperate speed. The air above the Rhine becomes a solid, shrieking, crisscrossing web of steel. Dusty Miller's crew doesn't even get new orders. They just have a list of targets. Fire 10 rounds, shift 50 yards right. Fire 10 rounds, smoke, shift 100 yards. Fire, fire, fire for 1 hour. The Sextons are the beating heart of this apocalypse. They are firing faster than the towed guns. They are firing, shifting position slightly, and firing again, becoming an untargetable fluid wave of destruction. On the far bank, the German 180th Infantry Division simply evaporates. It is annihilated. When the commandos cross the river an hour later, they find a moonscape. They find dazed, deafened, sobbing survivors who surrender to the first man they see. The pepper pot, powered by the Sexton, has broken the will of the final German army. When the war ends 6 weeks later, the final tally is counted. The ram tank, the failed Titan, never fought. The nearly 2,000 units built were used, humiliatingly, as training vehicles, their guns removed. But its failure was the single most important accident of the Allied war effort. Because of that failure, the Montreal Locomotive Works had 2,000 perfect, reliable, powerful chassis ready and waiting. Because of that failure, Elias Boyer and his team were forced to create the Frankenstein gun that became the Sexton. Montreal built 2,150 Sextons. They became the standard, default, self-propelled gun for the entire British Army. They were in every Canadian artillery regiment. They were in the British 7th Armoured, the Desert Rats, the Guards Armoured, and every other major formation. They were even used by Polish and South African forces. They were so good, so mechanically reliable, that they were not scrapped at the end of the war. While the war-winning Sherman was quickly retired, the accidental Sexton, built on the failed ram chassis, served on. Sextons of the Royal Canadian Artillery fired the first Canadian shots of the Korean War in 1950. The British Army kept them in service until 1956. The Portuguese Army, part of NATO, was still using Canadian-built Sextons into the 1980s. The Sexton was, by every measure, the most successful, reliable, and strategically important armored vehicle Canada had ever produced. It was the gun that smashed the Hitler line in Italy. It was the gun that broke the Hitler Jugend at Caen. It was the gun that liberated the Scheldt and shattered the Rhine. It was the accidental child of a failed tank. A secret backbone of victory, forged in a Canadian factory by locomotive engineers who proved that a dead-end idea could, by pure chance and desperate ingenuity, be rebuilt into the machine that won the war.